to have this conversation about Kyler Murray's future, the Browns' future at quarterback for this year, we head out to the Make It Right Call Kyle Wright hotline. The man has been, I'm telling you, on the phones, tracking down Kyler Murray's future. Albert Breer, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
I mean, we're selling the virtues of Kyler Murray to Cleveland. How good can it be, buddy?
Well, I mean, I actually think he's got some juice. And I think he's going to be motivated. We'll see where it goes, But I think he's an interesting case because he's going to be able to make this purely a football decision, And maybe that won't favor Cleveland, but because of the offset, they have a chance to really look at this analytically if everybody's offering the minimum, and I assume that's where it's going to be because the Cardinals are going to get stuck with the rest of the bill. He's going to be able to kind of prioritize what the best football situation is for him, which to me makes this thing a whole lot more interesting.
So, Albert, then who are the main competitors against the Browns in this bidding war, and what realistic chance do the Browns have?
Well, that's the thing is it's not a bidding war, and just to explain to people how that works, so he has $36.8 million fully guaranteed left on his Cardinals contract.
Mm-hmm.
So he's getting that money regardless.
Right.
Unless someone is willing to pay him more than that, then that's the number he'll get. So essentially what that means is a team would have to pay him $40 or $45 million for the Cardinals to get off the hook. Otherwise, the number is going to be the same. And naturally, in that circumstance, the team signing him is going to want to pay him on the minimum. And Kyler's going to have no problem just sticking the Cardinals with the bill because they just cut him. So, that makes it so, again, this is a pure football decision for him because the money, again, I can't imagine somebody's going to pay him $40, $45 million. You can make this a pure football decision. The only caveat to that is another team could add a second year and guarantee some money in the second year and maybe try to make it more enticing to him that way. But the way I'm envisioning this happening is it's going to be like Russell Wilson. He's going to find the best football situation for him, whether that's going and being a clear-cut starter somewhere, whether that's competing somewhere, whether that's developing somewhere. And I think, a team like Minnesota, the Jets, the Browns would be in this mix. Teams that I think, would give him the chance to get on the field in 2026 would have an advantage. And then it's just going to be about convincing him that you're the best place for him to go and play football and resurrect his career.
Albert, the Browns quarterback reports, or rather the quarterbacks that could be interested in, to add a third quarterback to the room of Shador or Dillon, and then Deshaun are pretty much all over the place. Do we know what the Browns' intent is with adding a quarterback here? Is the intent to pursue winning as much as they can this year, or is the intent to kind of sell a fight here and make everybody think they're trying to win as many games as they can this year?
Yeah, I don't know that they're going to go all out to go get a veteran quarterback if that's what you're asking. But I think they'd add competition to the room. I think there's still a decent chance the starting quarterback isn't on the roster right now. I think there's a chance the starting quarterback is Deshaun Watson. I mean, who knows? Maybe one of the young guys breaks through and competes. You know what I mean? And winds up winning the job. I think all that stuff with a new head coach in place is open because everybody sort of gets a clean slate now with the new coaching staff in there. So I have a hard time saying who's going to be a starting quarterback in September. I also have a hard time seeing them going all out to go and find some sort of veteran quarterback that's going to be there for more than a year. I think they view this the same way they viewed last year, as sort of a transitional year for them. And the good news is on the other end of it, you've got, in 2027, a draft that looks like it's going to be full of quarterbacks. And, which ones wind up being the ones at the top, we'll see. But there's a good dozen names out there that I think have a chance to go somewhere in the first round if they play well in the fall.
What is your read on the Browns and potentially adding Anthony Richardson to the mix?
Yeah, I'd be careful on that one. I think if you're in a position where you're going to have a young team, you got a first-year head coach, you're trying to establish a program. I don't know that he'd be the fit. I'd also say the eye thing, right, like, should not be ignored. And, like, how is that going to affect him as a player? He already had his issues, you know what I mean? But now you've got the eye thing that's a big piece of this. I know it's exciting, the idea that for people to look at a guy with that sort of size and speed and strength and all the rest of it. I think it's an information project that you want to invest in it for the Browns.
Albert Breer on the Make It Right Call Kyle Wright hotline. The other bit of quarterback news today is that the Colts transition tag Daniel Jones. There's some concern in Indy from the people that I've seen that this opens up the room that somebody could offer him a big deal and steal him from you. People are talking about Minnesota potentially. Are the Colts taking a risk by only transitioning tagging Daniel Jones?
Sure they are. I think that this is obviously a calculated risk by the Colts. I mean, the thing with the Colts are betting is that no one's going to pay him at that level. I think it'll take a team like coming in like Seattle came in on Sam Darnold last year that says, like, yeah, we see him being the quarterback for the next few years. And, oh, by the way, we're okay with him, being on a torn Achilles that might keep him from participating in the spring and summer. And it might be hard to find that team. But, I think what you gain in leverage by transition tagging him rather than franchise tagging him, you give up in security. And that you don't know that he's necessarily going to come back. And here's the other thing, too. I think this is like a little nuance to it that's important. It does at least give him the chance to have realistic talks with other teams about his worth. And I think for a team, there's some power in that, in letting a guy know, like, hey, we're going to let you go and see if there's a better place for you out there, and we're going to let you see what your market value is. And I think Daniel Jones' intention is playing for Shane Steichen next year. I think the Colts' intention is having Daniel Jones being the quarterback, but they haven't gotten very far to this point. My sense is they were pretty far apart on the few talks that they have had. So there's definitely a lot of work to be done.
We saw that the Bengals did not end up tagging Trey Hendrickson. They just keep taking a step back on defense even more and more. It seems like a peculiar move, but one maybe I guess we could have seen coming, Albert?
No, I would have told you in November they weren't going to tag him. I think Trey Hendrickson was out on the Bengals. I think the Bengals were out on Trey Hendrickson. Simple as that. Like I had as little question in my head about that one as I've had of any of these over the last decade or so. It was not in a good place in October, November, and December. He gets hurt. Is he pushing his way through the injury and trying to get back in play? That was an open question. They gave him the raise at the beginning of last year. I think that whole thing, without placing blame on anybody specifically, was in a really, really funky spot. And so I think this was always the end game. I think November, December, January, this was the way it was going to go. And obviously now, like, Trey Hendrickson gets what he's wanted the last few years, which is a chance to get one last fight at the financial apple as an NFL player.
Albert, in your Tuesday notes here, you talked about the Browns doing O-line work. They traded for Titus Howard from the Texans yesterday. They have been linked to Linderbaum to a lesser degree, but Walker, the left tackle out of Green Bay. How do you kind of see the Browns attacking the offensive line here in free agency, kind of pitting the big names versus maybe running a numbers game with some of these offensive linemen that are available?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a two-barreled approach. Like, I think, you're going to see them attacking free agency. You're going to see them attacking the draft. Like, I look at Titus Howard as a pretty good solution, a guy who's got some flexibility, and that allows you to look at both guards and tackles in free agency. And then I think the draft class in the first round, you've got some good prospects to tackle. So, obviously they've got 4 starting offensive linemen that are out there as free agents now: Conklin, Tonio, Teller, and postage, right? So Jawan Jones really is the only guy that you have coming back that looks like he could be a starter, whether it's a guard or tackle. And now I think between Jones and Howard, you have two guys with some position flexibility, which will allow you to be creative in how you put the group together. But I don't think there's any question about it. They're gonna look in the veteran market, as they already have with Howard, and they're gonna look at draft picks to try and completely reimagine what they are up front.
Did Monroe Freeling, did he do enough to put himself up in conversation at number 6 overall?
I don't think so. That would surprise me. Now, one thing you have to be comfortable with, and one thing that I think is interesting about all of this is the top two guys presumably are Spencer Fano and Francis Mauigoa from Miami. And Mauigoa and Fano are both right tackles. Now, I think most scouts would tell you that they think Fano could flip over to the left side if he needs to. Mauigoa, I think projects as more of a right tackle by trade. So, how do you look at those guys versus Caleb Lomu, who's the other tackle from Utah, who's played left tackle, who's a prototype, who's a little raw. You mentioned Monroe Freeling. Again, a guy who has, I think, real high-end potential, but maybe needs to harvest his talent a little bit. So there's some moving parts there. I think most people would tell you right now that Fano and Mauigoa would probably be right in that range where the Browns are, and that Freeling and Lomu would be big reaches at number 6 overall. But I think part of that could come down to exactly what you're looking for with your draft pick, and maybe that leads the Browns trying to trade down again. I certainly think they're like a lot of other teams where if you offer them a pick in 2027, they might jump at it.
Albert, given the state of the quarterback position, given that Max Crosby's out there, Trey Hendrickson is out there, do you think people are going to be calling about Myles Garrett this offseason for the Browns?
Sure. I don't know how far it'll go. I mean, I've said this to you guys before. I view it as they should listen at least. He's a great player, guys. You know what I think of him. I just don't know, what that's going to look like in 3 years. You know what I mean? And it does seem like this is more of a long-range rebuild that the Browns are in now, and they invested in the guys from last year in the draft class. They're hoping to draft as well as they did. Having the 2 first-round picks certainly helps. And again, maybe the second of those first-round picks winds up being one of those tackles. But I don't know. I would look at where they are right now as sort of being in more of a position to plan this out long term, rather than jump on anything right now.
Albert, other big news, this one away from the Browns. Drew Dahlman, though, telling the Bears that he's retiring from the NFL, 27 years old. It seems odd after the season he just had with Caleb Williams, making a Pro Bowl and everything in between. Do you know any insight or any info on this at all?
Yeah, I mean, he had some injuries. I think there's also, this is sort of what players are empowered to do now, because they're getting paid more. They have more information on what football does to them. And I think more guys have planned post-career, so it's not football or nothing for them. And this guy's the son of a guy who was a really established NFL offensive lineman, too. His dad's Chris Dahlman, who was a starting lineman, for the Steve Young 49ers back in the 90s. So I think it's, to me at least, the way I look at it, it's one of those scenarios where you have a guy who is in the prime of his life and has options and is taking one of those options. I just don't know specifically, guys, if there's anything more behind it, which there could be. I'm just not sure one way or the other.
Albert, great stuff, buddy. Appreciate you. We'll catch up with you next week on the auspices of legal tampering and NFL free agency.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Albert Breer there, MMQB on the Make It Right Call, Kyle Wright hotline.